Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We've got Big E and Rudo coming to you live after, I guess it's always an off day in the off season, right? But game one of the Stanley Cup Finals to get played the other day. I will say, great game. Game one of the Cup Finals was awesome. Really fun to watch. Edmonton with the comeback overtime win. It's obviously I would much rather the Avs were there, but there's something nice about watching some hockey with no real stakes for you, especially when it's good hockey like that. It's a good time.
And you knew, again, power play, right? Opportune time,
Yep.
Overtime, cream rises to the top. It just does. And if you want to win, it needs to rise. You knew McDavid wasn't going to be denied. He looked a little possessed in the third period. That was a sick play on the tying goal there. So it's like, they chipped away at it. And then you have an opportunity to take a 1-0 lead at home in front of your fans. And very important game. You know what I mean? So then now it starts on the right foot compared to last year where they were chasing it the whole time and ran out of time. Starts on the right foot. Your big players need to make a play with a puck on their stick. They did. I mean, they just did. It is what it is. And you feel bad for Tomas Nosek. One of their best PKs. And again, one of those plays, right? Puck in the stands, and you take advantage of it. And that's what Draisaitl did with McDavid. A nice little play by Corey Perry, too. And now they got a 1-0 lead. And you know what I mean? Like, both teams were good. Both teams had their moments. That's why I went to overtime. And, the better team in my book won last night. They were the better team overall.
By the end of the game, shots were like 45-30 or something. They
exactly.
took over.
They deserve. Yeah, they deserve to win. Skinner was good in the second period when he had to, and then they went with it. So it was good. It was fun. Expect a lot more like that of the same, tomorrow night. So it's exciting. It's a good final.
Yeah, it is. I hope it lives up to the hype. I picked Florida, but to be honest with you, I don't actually care who wins. I just hope for good hockey with the finals. So far, so good for game one.
But A-Wolf, A-Wolf, they talks about it too. Like, exactly. They executed, and they've been doing that, and that's why they're in the finals. You could have the best players in the world, but if they don't execute, they don't take advantage of the plays. That's what the Avalanche. Let's call a spade. That's what Nate or Kale, I'm not blaming it, but they didn't execute the big plays when the time was needed. And, the difference is those guys are doing it right now, and maybe that's their time. Who knows? I don't know.
We'll see.
It's a great point.
We'll see in maximum 6 more games on their front. Other news, and there's quite a bit of news today, especially in the realm of your stuff, E, when it comes to things like coaches and things like that. All around the league. Boston officially hires Marco Sturm. That one had kind of been out there for a while, so not a big surprise to see Sturm go to Boston. New York pretty much redo their entire coaching staff with apparently they called you to get all the ex-BU guys.
That's what it sounds like.
And then Pittsburgh also hires a new head coach in Dan Muse. I don't know. What do you make of this? We have some level of coaching carousel stuff getting done. We have some new coaches coming in.
Yeah.
I guess let's talk about that a little bit. Where do you stand on that? The difference between retreading coaches like the NHL so often does versus finding that new blood at coach.
Yeah, I'm good with both. For me, it's more a question, and I hate using that word, but it's a question of fit. You know what I mean? Like, what does your team need today? Meaning, what's happened the last 24, 36 months for you to decide on today on new blood or I'll use the word rethread, you know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean? So I think it's very important in every case, every team is in different situations. I think I don't think you can be afraid to hire new, you know what I mean? Because it's worked out for some people. And then I don't think you can be afraid to hire old because of what you're looking for with your room, with your group. When it comes down to those guys, Marco Sturm, obviously playing a long time. I know him real well. His son was my son's roommate in school. Is my son's best friend. It's Max's best friend, Mason. So it's I'm biased because a great human being. You know what I mean? And European coach, you know what I mean? So, which is awesome. German guy, right? You know, that's kind of where he started with obviously after his career in the NHL, kind of the national team in Germany, and then kind of got the taste of coaching. And so that'll be awesome. And then, and as far as all the BU guys going, I love those guys. You know that. I'm a big fan of Joe, and those guys are going to do awesome. And Quinny and all friends of the show have been awesome. And, Rangers, Broadway, what more can you ask? You know what I mean? Chris Drury. So those guys are going to, they're going to do good there. Mike Sullivan's a heck of a coach. And, I'm assuming that it's going to be a great group there. But, and as far as Muse is concerned, that's the new blood, right? You know what I mean? It's more like a lot of people like on social media would say, who's that? Obviously, when you look back, even me that, as you know, like I pride myself in kind of knowing a little bit something about everybody. I got caught off guard a little bit with that one, you know what I mean? And then you start asking around and you're like, oh man, no, he was in Nashville. Oh man, he was in New York. And then, he was the head guy in NTDP. Then you ask a couple kids that I know that, obviously Max's friends that are there, like, no, he's awesome. He was awesome. He's great. You know what I mean? So all you hear is good things. Then you're like, all right. You know what I mean? Like now, we don't have a pulse on the Pittsburgh Penguins. We don't follow them. We're not, we don't work for them. Kyle Dubas and company, they're the ones that are dealing with that. But, is that what Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, you're talking about old blood. You know what I mean? I'm not saying these are the guys that decide what's next, but that's why it looks to be like a weird hire. Nothing against the guy because I heard he's fantastic. It just looks to be like a weird mix, or maybe they're trying to do a mix. I don't know. But, you would have seen maybe a rethread there. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You know what I mean? But you're sticking with those guys with all the respect to those three guys because it's unbelievable what they've accomplished in their careers. But where's this going if you're Pittsburgh? That's all I'm kind of saying,
I mean, Pittsburgh's in a bit of a weird spot, right? I understand moving on from Sullivan. You missed the playoffs 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Even winning back-to-back cups with them, at a certain point, this is not.
For sure.
People are calling for Jared Bednar's head for the Avs losing in the first round in the last 2 of the 3 years, let alone missing the playoffs 3 years in a row with Sidney Crosby. So I get it. Yeah. I get moving on from Sullivan. I do think it's interesting to go in a unknown direction, especially when you see Sullivan essentially immediately getting hired elsewhere. I do wonder. And I don't think they made the wrong decision. Again, Sullivan's coaching career had run its course in Pittsburgh at that point. But when you see a guy get hired that quickly somewhere else, do you wonder a little bit if you're Pittsburgh that maybe you shouldn't have done it?
Maybe. I think you have to, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was saying. Like, the worst thing you can do is compound mistakes. I don't want to use mistakes, but I mean, you have to see where you're at today. And, if it didn't work out the last 12 months, 6 months, 24, or whatever it is, and sometimes it's just a few months. For the Avalanche, it's really the past month of the season. It's more like the past few weeks because it's a one round, right? Before that, it kind of looked normal. You know what I mean? So sometimes you do regret. Sometimes you do, but you can't look back. And I think you have to move forward. And that's what it looks like. That's what they're trying to do, which is move forward. But it's hard to move forward when you have those, like you just said, those contracts, right? Those guys, what I mean? They're Hall of Fame players. That's not what I'm saying. And of course, we'd take Sidney but Letang has been, what a warrior that guy is. Honestly, Chris Letang, guys, that's a warrior. You talk about a freak of nature, like a physical specimen, amazing. You know what I mean? Like, and Geno Malkin. I mean, Batman and Robin, those two, all those years, right? So it's like But now it's like, where's it going? Like,
Uh,
what do you do? You
Well,
know?
let me ask you that, E. And look, I'm still pretty squarely in the camp that Crosby's not coming to Colorado. It's not going to happen. But
No,
if Pittsburgh gets off to a really rough start this year, you have a new head coach. If things go south fast, does that help? Does that put the Avs maybe a little bit more in the conversation for someone like Crosby?
for sure. And I'll stick to my guns. I don't know. I'll say it again. I do believe that if he was going to move, uh, it would be a summertime thing, right? You know what I mean? I don't know why. That's all I keep thinking. I'm just thinking. I think if you commit to it, and he's been so loyal to the organization, if you commit to it, I know you're going to say, well, what if it goes south and then in February? No, I get that. A guy like that that's always been in one place, it's always easier to start fresh in the summer. You know what I mean? To get yourself acclimated, to get, when I mean, let's face it, he's earned that right? You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I'm not
of
saying
course.
that he wouldn't do it. That's not what I'm. He wouldn't be able to do it. You don't know. He's never been traded. He's never been sent out. He's always been in the same place. You know what I mean? And so it's hard to imagine. But you would think that. And again, maybe that's the case. Maybe he is moving. I don't know. I'm not starting rumor here on DNVR Avalanche. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're doing something like that, you know what I mean, and you're going to get a new blood, new fresh coach, which, again, like I said, I'm sure the guy's awesome. I heard he's awesome. Uh, and that's a fact. I talked to a couple NTDP kids yesterday, and they were like raving about him. So that is not what I'm saying. But so is he moving on? Is that a sign that maybe Crosby's moving on and it's going to happen here before the draft? I don't know. You know what I mean? But I don't know. If I'm him, I'd go somewhere else. No offense to the players that are with but I understand as well how loyal he is, and that's his character and everything. But I don't know. I would find myself to be unloyal for a little bit. Like I said, he's earned that right, so nobody would judge him. Nobody in Pittsburgh would judge him. So we'll see. You know what I mean? But kind of hard to do what they need to do with those three pieces right there
Yeah,
that are not young anymore.
yeah.
So
It'll
it's
be
hard.
interesting. It'll be interesting. I'll put it to you that way. Uh, this other, I don't know, I wouldn't call this news, but I have seen a lot of people talking about this. Cujo in chat bringing it up. Jay Woodcroft still available. Obviously, he ran Edmonton for a while. Edmonton's power play has been great for years and years and years. Part of that is, they have McDavid and Draisaitl, but maybe Woodcroft gets some credit for it. Any interesty? Obviously, Woodcroft would have to be interested in the Avs assistant job, but if he was, would you want to bring him in and try and have him run the Avs power play a little bit?
Yeah, I listen. I said it like 5 minutes ago. I like both. I like new blood. I like experience. I'm one of those guys that if it's a good fit for Bedsy and Prater and Brett and CMAC and the front office, then I'm sure they've talked to him. You would think that they've talked to him, but it's a big domino effect in the NHL. It's so funny what goes on behind the scenes, as we just saw, right? As we just saw. If Joe's not getting the job in Boston, then where would he go? And then you got teams that are starting to call for him, and then it's like, then you got four teams that want you. Then you take team number X. Then the other teams are available now. They're like, oh, we didn't get our guy. It's the same thing, and then it's like a little bit of a pool, right? And then what do you bring? Is it PP Woodcroft? Is it PK Joe? Is it head coaching experience? Oh, both. Is it X player factor and you're just, like you're good in the room and you get it, you know what I mean, to get everything together and tight with the head coach. And that's your job as a, pardon me, swallow sideways, as a liaison between, the staff and the coaches and the players. And so I think it's got a big domino effect. Who gets what job? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then again, for coaches, familiarity is very important for a lot of them. Just look at Pete DeBoer, a guy we're familiar with. Spotter's always with him, right? Wherever he
True.
goes, Spotter goes, right? Because it's you work well together. I'm sure if Bedsy would leave right now, I'm pretty sure Prater would be with him. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is, right? you work well, you have success together. So I think a guy like Woodcroft, like the chat's bringing up, I'm sure they've looked at. I'm sure they've looked at internal people that we've talked about. I'm sure that they've looked at everybody's got some sort of relationship with someone over the course of years, right? And
Of course.
then you look back and it's like, oh, I don't know, Kevin McDonald, assistant GM, was in St. Louis all those years, and maybe he was familiar with, I don't know, Coach X, and it's like, oh, he's available now, right? Hey, you guys should meet him, and then they set up those little, Zooms and meet in person, and then you figure out what's the best fit for you. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's certainly, some good up and comers, and there's certainly some good, I hate the word, but rethreads. You know what I mean? Even a guy like Mitch Love, right? He looked like he was in the running for Pittsburgh, but didn't get it. So his time will come. His turn will come. It's just
always the bridesmaid right now for Mitch Love. So
yeah, he's got time.
Do want to continue this conversation? We do need to pay a few bills first. Let me ask you if this is a good idea or not. If you're trying to get to know a new assistant coach, or maybe a player getting to know a new head coach, should you have a couple Coors Lights together?
Chill, absolutely.
Sometimes that's the way. Loosen up a little bit. Have a good time. Get yourself some ice cold Coors Lights where the bottle or the can turns blue. So it lets you know it's ice cold. At least the mountains turn blue. You can jump in with them. Obviously, it's brewed right here in Colorado. We love them. Finally starting to actually feel like summer a little bit out. I know it's been very rainy, but J. Mike was out on the grill the other day, living the life. That's the best time to go get yourself a Coors Light. Of course, whatever you're doing, though, maybe you're inside watching the Stanley Cup Final. Also another great time to have yourself some Coors Light. And the coolest part is you don't even have to go get it. Of course, they are in every liquor store in the country, so if you're out and about, go grab some Coors Light. But you can sit right on your couch. You can go to CoorsLight.com/DNVR, and you can get it delivered right to your front door, thanks to Instacart. So make sure you're going out there and choosing chill and getting with Coors Light today. Or maybe, you go out to some cool events like our Rockies takeover. You're not going to the Rockies for the Rockies game. You're going for a good time and to have a few Coors Lights. Let's be honest about it. That's why. So go get yourself a Coors Light. Go to CoorsLight.com/DNVR today. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. And of course, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Please drink responsibly. And then once you've maybe had a few Coors Lights, or maybe you have the Coors Lights after, you get with Volo Sports. Volo is Denver's most popular provider of adult social sports leagues, pickup games, and events. They offer a ridiculous amount of sports, including soccer, volleyball, pickleball, kickball, basketball, cornhole, and much, much more. Playing with Volo is not just a great way to go out and exercise and play some sports, but you can meet new people, make friends, be social. You can also, get more active and be healthier that way. It helps you mix up your workout routine. You can also play just about anywhere in Colorado: Lodo, Rhino, Highland, City Park, Cherry Creek, South Broadway, and more. And even if you don't live in Denver, if you live in any decently large city around the country, Volo is probably there and you can get in with them. So make sure you get in with Volo today. Players can sign up as a free agent, small group, or full team at all availability levels and backgrounds, and you're welcome to join no matter what. So use code DNVR10 for $10 off any Volo Denver league. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Yeah, you got more to say? Go off.
Well, Volo-wise, I'm just saying, as a free agent, I would be very sought after.
You're getting the big bucks in free agency.
Yeah, on the volleyball court, I'm like a cat. They call me Kivi. You know what I mean? Meow. Kivi the cat. I'm flying out there like I'm the man. I might not look like it. You know what I mean? Like I might look like an elephant, but I'm quick like a cat. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's one thing. And also, you were talking about Coors Light, and the Rockies. I saw that there's still tickets available for our DNVR takeover for the Rockies on Sunday in a suite. So just throwing that out there. If you're going to go to Coors Field, might as well go in a suite there with the DNVR Rockies. So get in there. There's still a few tickets available in my book, I think. I thought that's what I saw.
There are. Just ask the folks who came to the Avs suite. It's a good time.
Yeah. So that's what I was saying. Just thought about it. I'm like, you could chill.
Got our money's worth just by the food alone.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yes.
All right. So a couple of other things? You brought up Kivi. I want to talk about that really quickly before we do, though. The very smallest bit of Avs news today: Yuri Inola is going back to Europe. I don't think that's all that big of a surprise. He got a handful of NHL games.
Yeah.
I don't want to be mean. I don't want to hate on the guy. He's definitely a quality professional hockey player. Didn't really seem to fit the Avs at the NHL level, so he's back in Europe.
But he gave, you know what? You know what? This is a guy that probably makes decent money over there, and
yeah, I'm sure.
Right? I'm just saying, it's like very familiar with North America because he gets it from Lecky, right? I think he's engaged or whatever. His girlfriend is Lecky's sister, right? So of course it's like he sees all that stuff in North America and, hey, maybe I should give it a shot. You know what I mean? Then he gets an opportunity, and good American League player gets a handful of NHL games, and probably like more suited for the Finnish Elite League or whatever, Europe, wherever he plays, and so he goes back, but at least he has no regrets later on in life and say, hey, I gave it a shot. You know what I mean? So I don't mind when guys try that. I think it's cool. So good on him for going back.
Yep, he tested the waters and goes where he wants to go, I'm sure.
Yep.
So, Kivi, kind of a conversation on today's show, as in a minute we'll talk about landmines potentially, but I also want to talk about potential buy low candidates for the Colorado Avalanche, because Kivi Raanta is an interesting conversation this year. Now, there are analytics out there that expect his contract to only be $1 million deal, which I would do at very least right away. But Kivi Raanta had 23 points last season, scored at a rate that is probably unrealistic for him to sustain. So for you, are you interested in bringing Kivi back? And I'm sure you are, but at what price?
Yeah. And you're talking about landmines. I like the cat. You guys know that. It grew on me. Took a bit. Took a bit. And we all know that Jared likes them, and I get that. It's half the battle. To get the trust of a coach or to get the trust of a player. So it's there. Meow. But he also becomes, not a cat anymore, more like a landmine. You know what I mean? If you're signing a guy to, he falls into your category, your word of landmines. If all of a sudden
your dollar value starts with a 2, man, it gets tough quick.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble. You know what I mean? And I think I'm not a player anymore, so it's easier said than done, right? When you're in it, you have to remember what he did. He came in here with no job. Could he have had a job? Could he have had a trial? We don't know that. I don't know him, so I don't know that. Sometimes guys will pass up on a contract and say, no, I'm going to go there on a, PTO, right? You know what I mean? Or whatever you call that. Right? Yeah, PTO. Is that what we call it? Yeah, camp invite. And then figure it out. And then he was told, no room, go to the American League. You know what I mean? And again, this is a guy that's been in the league for a few years now at that time, right? You know what I mean? And then he goes there. So he does take the risk. He does do the efforts to, really do what's asked of him. And then he delivers, so it's kind of hard to say afterwards, well, you deliver now and please come back at the same deal, right? Entry level. And you're like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. But there's got to be a sweet spot. And I think as a player, you have to recognize that, because sometimes you'll take, like you said, the $2 million deal. Next thing you know, you bought out. So you end up with the same money, and then your career's longer because you stayed in the place where you were, i.e. the Avs, Bednar, whatever, where he's trusted. I like the cat, but it depends. And I think if you asked Jared if he was here with us, between you and me, he'd be like, oh, yeah, keep him. And then you give him the hat of a GM, and you're like, hey, you got to think. He'd be like, yeah, I get it. But coaches sometimes they don't care. They're just, I want the player, right? Because it's not important.
Of course.
So that's a tricky one. But he's a trustworthy, smart player. Streaky, we all know that. But we'll see what happens there.
The reality is the Avs just aren't in a place where they can keep depth players that are getting overpaid. And if Kivi wants to stay and he wants to take $1 million or maybe even $1.5 million, awesome. He can stay. He's probably worth it at that price. I'm not going to worry too much about it. If he wants the big bucks, I would not blame him. He just had the best year of his career. If some team offers him $2 million, $2.5 million, and he wants the money, power to him. Happy for him. Go get paid. Go secure the bag. Go set yourself up for the rest of your life. Good job. The reality is, though, and again, nothing against Kivi. He was a solid piece for the Avs.
Yeah.
Those dudes are kind of a dime a dozen in the NHL. A forward
But
that can give you 20 points.
And again, remember I caught flack for a Kovalenko comment, and you're right. That's what I was saying. You can find other guys. You can find other guys like that, make them do the same thing, and make them successful. And someone's bringing up, was it Awolf? Somebody just said 16 goals, he won't do it again. I agree. Maybe not. Maybe you'll never know, right? And someone's like, well, he's not going on the fourth line. Yeah, sorry, Awolf said it. Yeah, I agree. That's a tough prediction. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where you know what I mean? Like, you'd probably put your money that he's not doing it again, right? You know what I mean? That you would bet 365. You're like, oh, you know what?
Not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I agree with the comment, and then I agree with someone saying like, oh, fourth line, Ego right here, yeah. So that's all good, and that's awesome. Until you have 1, 2, 3 injuries, then you really love the cat. You know what I mean? Because you're like, oh, thank God we have the cat. But that's why the cat at $2 million with that answer is no good. But if it's the cat at a reasonable price, you're like, okay, fair enough. Thank God we kept him. Because you're always going to have 1 or 2 or 3 injuries, right? We all know that. And that's when you're like, oh, God. And I don't think that a guy like that, and you hear that comment all the time, people, oh, he's keeping guys away and he's pushing guys down in the American League. No, we all know that it's very thin for guys that are ready today to come to the NHL. We all know Ivan, Pish, the guys are, they're right there. But, at the end of the day, a guy like Kivi is not pushing those guys down. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, I think we have him right. It's like, you have to be careful what the number is. And like I said, if Bednar was off the farm today and he'd be like, yes, please, guys, I'll make sure we push for Kivi on time, right? Because it's like, he likes them, and I get it. I get there's a lot to like.
Well, let's expand on this conversation then and talk about a few potential buy low candidates that the Avs could think about to possibly replace someone like a Kivi Ranta on that third line. And I'll go first here. If you want to read about AJ's and J Mike's thoughts on some of these options, make sure you become a diehard. Go check out the last roundtable we did. They have written their thoughts about some possible guys the Avs could target in there. So, yeah, go sign up to be a diehard today. Always a great time. I selected as a possible buy low candidate Daniel Sprong. Look, I'm not going to lie to you and say there's no risk here. There's always risk when you're looking at a potential reclamation project type, right? They could not bounce back, and they could just not be an NHL caliber player. But when you look at someone like Daniel Sprong, yes, last year was incredibly weird for him. He ended up playing for 3 teams. He was often used as a 13th forward and didn't even get into games. He only had 7 points in 30 games, which is not like terrible, but it's not particularly good production. But when you look at the 2 previous years, he was a 40-point guy in both of those years. And those numbers are a little bit deceiving. He was getting power play time in both Detroit and Seattle in those years, but it wasn't so much relying on the power play. He was still a 35-ish point guy at 5-on-5 for those teams. And maybe the most important part about that for Sprong is he was a 35-ish point guy playing 11 or 12 minutes a night. This was not a guy getting up in the lineup playing a ton of minutes to find that production. He's a 35-point guy on legitimate third-line minutes. Now other teams are going to see this too, and maybe the cost ends up going too high. But if you can get a guy like that for $2-ish million to play on a third line with Coyle and Colton, certainly Coyle will be the defensive heavy lifter on that line. You're starting to build the third line that can produce a little bit more for you. So I do think the Avs are going to have to be cost efficient in their depth forward core, especially. We talked about on the show the other day with Nelson signed. Their next big thing is how do they reshape their defense more than their forward depth. So guys like Sprong, guys that maybe had tough years that are coming into free agency at the wrong time, the way you did in your career, E, might be options for Colorado to look at to get value out of.
You got me there.
Look,
I know.
you
I know
scored
you
how
gotta
many
go.
more points than me? Like, I can't talk. I can't actually talk.
Yes. That's just because my dad was there. That's okay. I'm kidding. Hey, if you can't make fun of yourself, Anyway, I know you got to get on stuff. I'll let you do your stuff, and then I'll jump on Sprong there.
Perfect. We'll do that after we pay a few bills here, as we are, of course, brought to you by the amazing folks over at Empire Today. Look, guys like Daniel Sprong, he's one of the floorboards, all right? He's not the guy at the top. He's not the marble countertops, but he's the solid foundation to your team. So make sure you get with Empire Today to get your new floors. You get $350 off when you go to empiretoday.com/DNVR or use the DNVR code with Empire Today. Whatever the type of flooring, hardwood, tiles, carpets, whatever it might be, they have the best quality products, and everyone there are crazy floor nuts. They just think about floors, work on floors all day long. So make sure you're getting with Empire Today. Go over there. You can use their online tools if you want. You can always go in store. You can go to the empiretoday.com/DNVR to order a free in-home estimate. Costs you nothing. They'll send out a professional. They'll bring you like floor swatches so you can see what it looks like in your space. And then, of course, you can get $350 off when you do decide to get floors with Empire Today. So jump in with them. Use that DNVR code. You can go to empiretoday.com/DNVR for more details. Or, of course, you can always call 1-800-588-2300. Empire. Once you got your floors, you know what? Sometimes you need to get out of the house too. And that's why Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. They can get you where you want to go. Trucks have always been part of Toyota's DNA if you're a truck person. Of course, they also have SUVs too, like the Epic 4Runner, including 17 different models with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive across their range of vehicles. Tons of options when it comes to Toyota. They even have 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max. So yes, if you want a truck and a hybrid, Toyota has you covered there. Toyota's SUVs take command on the road or on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you today, including AutoNation Toyota Rapids and Centennial, Corbin Toyota Boulder, Groove Toyota Littleton, Mountain State Toyota in Denver, Stevens and Joyce in Aurora, and Stevens and Toyota West in Lakewood. Again, Toyota, the official vehicle, not just us here at DNVR, but the Colorado Avalanche too. Toyota, let's go places. Take me to a place where you tell me I'm an idiot for Daniel Sprong.
No, you're right, and that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to take. Obviously, different style of player. From Kivi, for example, 2 years ago, right? You know what I mean? Like reclamation project type deal. This guy's a lethal shot. He's got one of the best shots in the league. He's had some success. But you're right. I think this guy, and it's an art to produce with limited ice time. I tell you, like all the time, like having lived it, it's hard to produce if you don't get out there. And it's hard to produce if you don't get out there with, adequate line mates. When I say that is, not just, call ups or, and again, a call up can have a nice NHL career one day, but sometimes they're just not ready at that time. You know what I mean? So it's hard to produce with those guys. So if he's put in the right environment, I think with him, and I'm not starting rumors, I think it's always been a little bit of off ice stuff, with him and attitude wise. So I don't know. And I think you have to do your homework there. And that's what pro scouting's for. And that's why relationships are for, and looking back and who had them and how does this work. And again, I'm not spreading rumors by any means. I'm just saying, I think that when you do have the talent, you do have that shot, then you should stick somewhere, right? You know what I mean? And or is it just bad luck of the draw? I mean, whatever, like just bad luck and haven't been at the right place at the right time. So who knows? So I wanted to say that. So you're bang on, and then Super Shot's my hero today because I'm in love with Rasmus Anderson. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about, like if you're moving on from guys, like this is a guy that I can move a puck. This is a guy that's got bite. That's got a little flair. What a pick that is. If I remember, second or third round, right? Calgary, but I really love him. I love that type of player. Brings energy. Always happy. He can play the game. Oh my God! If there's a way for the Avs to get it, I don't know how you make it work. Obviously,
not exactly a buy low candidate, but
no. And again, his contract's got 1 year left. Claude's his agent, Claude Lemieux. So I think he's got a year left, right? Or he's becoming a free agent, right? Or something like that. So, I do believe, and that's why,
Yep.
he
1 year
probably,
left.
yeah. So, again, I don't know how you make it work. I don't know how you make it happen, but yeah, I mean, man, super shot. I mean, you made me happy today. So,
Yeah,
who knows?
maybe,
We'll see.
maybe
We'll see if they can make it work.
maybe not a player for today's show, but definitely a guy we should be having a conversation about when we talk about the Avs potentially reshaping their defense. That
Yeah.
price wise right now could make sense, could easily fit on the Avs second pairing. Definitely an interesting guy. It is what it is. On the buy low conversation, and this we're drifting into speculation now because we don't know
Yeah.
how this ends up. But look, I don't know that it's buy low necessarily, but is there a world where Jonathan Drouin takes another team friendly deal to stay in Colorado and he's your cheap third line winger?
I don't know. I think it's a question of like, this is how I think it's going to go. I think Alan Walsh was awesome with Jonathan, when last year, knowing and seeing where he's been and what he went through, and then being in a place with Nate and his friend and the Halifax homies, your T-shirt. So it's like I think it's the same conversation. Obviously, health played an issue this year. He wasn't healthy. Then he kind of fell down the right down the depth chart, and so I think it's a conversation of I think a lot of players want to know where they fit, where they think they will fit. Nothing's ever given, right? Because everything's earned. But this is where I think you will fit. I don't know, and maybe if he's told that you're gonna be on the third line, and you're not gonna be with, for example, like Nate or whatever. I don't know. This might change the trajectory of this decision, right? But he does like it here, as we all know, and he had some success here, and he's had some success. He's an excellent player, but you're right. He did it once. Is he going to do it again? You know what I mean? Like a team friendly deal. You know what I mean? So I don't know where this is going to go. I like Jonathan. I like the player. I like Alan. So I think they're smart. I think they're going to sit together and try to figure something out with Chris and, obviously, Bednar, and where does he see himself in there in that lineup, and then probably go from there. And sometimes it's like you got to move on for the best of your career. You know what I mean? And sometimes for the best of your career, you're like, you know what? No, I like it here. I'm going to prove that I belong there too. So who knows what direction that's going to go? But I think for him, what slowed everything down is obviously the injuries this year.
Yeah, I do think the money's going to be tough to make work with Drouin, but if you can,
Yeah,
I think it's a similar conversation to what you were talking about with Kivi, right? Jonathan
that's right.
Drouin maybe doesn't make a ton of sense as a third line guy, but the second you have one injury to your top six, you are going
There
to
you
be
go.
very happy that you have Jonathan Drouin on your hockey team.
That's right.
So
It's well said. Well said.
it might be a luxury the Avs just can't afford at this point. That is
Exactly. I don't
that
know.
is the tough spot there. E, did you have any buy lows you wanted to jump in on, or should we move on to the landmines?
No, I think you're good. I mean, somebody brought up Roslovic. This is a guy that same thing. You know what I mean? That's a great name brought up. Smart player, right? And can fit in a little bit anywhere. Can move up, down.
Maybe
Can
made more
skate.
sense before the Nelson signing, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Yeah, who knows what they thought? But there's always names like that, and then you always have to look coming up here, and this is where. You're on top of stuff like that is non-QO guys, right? You know what I mean? Non-qualified offer guys. And I think that's, when you're in pro scouting, you're in charge of so many teams, whatever it is. And I think you look at your depth charts and and it's like, yeah, there's no way they're qualifying Rudo. I mean, we should be on top of it. Who's the agent? Let's look. I'm not saying anything illegal, but I'm saying let's look around. And you know what I mean? Like, they're going to try to not QO him, but they're going to try to, obviously, because sometimes you don't QO a guy because he's got ARB rights, and but then you make a deal with him and
QO's $3
hey,
million or something. Yeah, whatever.
yeah, and they're like, we'll give you 2 years at 2-1, and let's not, I won't QO you, but so there's deals like that made. But I think you have to be on top of guys like that because you're talking about bargains and stuff, buying low, and that those are sometimes are guys that you're like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like, all right, let's Let's jump on those guys.
Often options, and the Avs do deserve credit. They've done a good job for a long time now on August 15th with college free agents. So
absolutely too. Yeah, same thing. So yeah.
So on the flip side of
Landmines.
this, landmines. This conversation has changed a little bit since the Avs have signed Brock Nelson. You're no longer looking at 2C options. My landmine pick the other day was Claude Giroux. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with him as a potential 2C for a number of reasons, but it's kind of a moot point now because your 2C slot is filled. So you have to slide into other areas. I'll take AJ's on this one because I agree with him fully. I think one of the biggest landmines for any team this offseason, not just the Avalanche, is Cody Ceci. That is a guy who teams keep doing this with. I don't understand it. There is a pretty long track record showcasing Cody Ceci is really not very good, and then teams go out and get him and they overplay him and he's not very good, and everyone does the Pikachu face. I don't understand. And I understand the Avs probably want to adjust their defense and make some changes to save cap space or get a different look or whatever your reasoning. Cody Ceci is not the look you want, in my opinion.
No, and there's a reason they moved on, right? They let him go to San Jose last year, right? They traded him. I don't remember what the situation was, but he didn't have an Oiler jersey on. And all they talk about now with the Oilers is the difference that a guy like Klingberg, healthy Klingberg, Wallman, Stetcher have made to their lineup. And, and that's kind of a little bag on, to Cody Ceci a little bit in my book, right? Because he's the one that was let go. And so, I mean, yeah, there's nice size, reach. I'm not a fan either. So that's why I would be like, yeah, landmine it, because I wouldn't touch it. You know what I mean? So I don't know why. And sometimes it's just a question of gut feeling and just don't like the style or, whatever it is. Obviously, sure he can be a fit somewhere. Obviously, he's been around the league long enough that, like you just said, people keep finding fits for. So, but I would steer away from that one.
Yeah, you're looking to improve your team in the offseason, and I forget who said the quote, but often the best thing you can do in free agency is not sign anybody because it's all mistakes and you only make your team worse. I don't know that I fully subscribe to that conversation. You do have to sign guys. You can find quality players, but there are certainly guys you need to avoid. And I just don't think Cody Ceci fits with the Avs. Need a couple of interesting conversations going on in the chat. Brad Marchand, Azray, not excited for Marchand as a potential possibility. Yeah, even in a world where you wanted Marchand, I just don't think he makes sense for the Avs, really. Again, the Avs are going to be very much scrimping and saving in the offseason, and they're going to be looking for bottom six forwards. So Marchand is, look, if he wants to come to Colorado for $2 million, awesome, but that's just not what's going to happen. So don't really see that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Big fan. I tell the story all the time that I went to see him back then working with the Avs and flew to Boston, rent a car. I went to Providence, and I don't remember who we were looking at. I don't remember who we were trying to trade, but I don't remember. I'm not hiding anything. I just don't remember. Anyway, and then I was going to see somebody else, and then he caught my eye. You know what I mean? And again, it's like 4'2", you know what I mean? And you're like, who is this dude? You know what I mean? Like, who is that? What a pain in my butt. You know what I mean? But he can play. So that was a long time ago. And he's got a lot of mileage. He's doing awesome right now. Oh my God, he's doing awesome. I think this is a guy that's going to stay in the Eastern Conference for all the reasons. And I would. I don't think it would be a fit for the Avs. Hardest working guy at practice every day, that guy. I mean, he sets the standard. It's amazing. You talk to any coach, and he's easy going. But I think it's once those guys like hit it, Like, I'm talking about the wall, they hit it. You know what I mean? And you just don't know when that's going to happen. Obviously not happening right now. He's been awesome. But a grinding 82 game season in the West, and I would just stay away from that, even though I love the player.
Yeah, agree. We can keep moving here. I think next on the list was Marner. Sure, whatever. The Avs wouldn't have been able to afford him anyway, so it's just not really a conversation for them. Matthias Michelli. This is a name I've heard brought up quite a bit. Look, I think he's a fine player. I think he'll be good. He fits that archetype of maybe a softer playmaking type of guy. Probably doesn't make a ton of sense for the Avs for that reason. I don't know. The Avs just don't seem to have success with those types in their third line, middle six, bottom six type guys. They play a style of hockey that expects a quality forecheck, a little bit of grit that is necessary on that level. That we've seen guys like Casey Middlestat, who I think is a pretty decent comparable for Michelli. I know Michelli's a better skater, but play style wise, perimeter pass first type of play, I just don't know that it makes sense for the Avs.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about in numbers, like, forget about the position and all that stuff, but like Druin, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, honestly,
you know what I mean? Like you're talking numbers. I don't know what his number is going to be if he doesn't get QO'd at 3.5, right? Somebody in chat wrote that. I'm going off that, but good player. Yeah, that doesn't mean that you're a good fit. You know what I mean, for wherever you're going to be. And too many times, that's why it's not always about the money. It's about a question of fit. And if you go for the right fit, you will salvage your career and then actually ultimately make more money and be more successful. It's not always about money, but, and a big part of it, we all know that. That's where the disputes start from, right? It's money. Yeah, somebody's saying it's just drawing with a different face, but, and that's a fair comment. You know what I mean? Because it's, if you, unless you can't, and Jordan walks away and goes somewhere else, and is that your replacement for that if you felt that Jordan was going to stay for that X amount of dollar, right? So, yeah, I mean, good player, but you'll have to see if that fits.
Yep. Benedict asks about some AHL guys in Dallas' system, Blumel and Hurkawian. I'm sure I butchered his name. If Blumel is an option, I'd definitely be interested. He's young enough, the type of guy. He played great in the AHL. You'd probably bring in a guy like that on a two-way deal and say, hey, come into camp and earn it. You end up competing with guys like an Ivan, maybe whoever your 12th, 13th forward is. Maybe you go with a Blumel instead of a Jimmy Vesey as like that extra guy if you're willing to take the risk on a less experienced player. He'd be interesting. Hurkawian is your pretty typical quad A player. I have less interest in the Avs bringing him in. He's a little bit on the small side. Doesn't make a ton of sense for the Avs forward depth in the NHL. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but it's a fair point there. And when I say pro scouting all the time, like, you got to remember, it's not just NHL scouting. Like, I used to work in development with the Avs, and again, I remember being a young guy in the Toronto system, and Mark Crawford, former Avs coach, used to always tell me, like, don't worry, when you're playing the game here in the American League, yeah, we're playing for our team, but you're playing for yourself as well. Because there's about 10, 12 teams out there watching you live on the press box right now, and they're watching not just you, but anybody. And all those names fit that. And then teams usually will be good. Teams, if they feel that there is no room for you, they feel that you're stuck in there, they'll let you go. They'll make a trade for you. You know what I mean? But they'll let you go and say, hey, you know what? Hopefully you need a better start over there, and there's more room for you, and that's where you need a good agent and a good GM, and it's good relationships, and you go do the work. So yeah, that's a great point, because there's always guys like that come out of nowhere from the American League, nowhere to some fans. Obviously, pro scouting, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they landed that guy. You know what I mean? Because he's a perfect guy, and that's why it's all about timing. It's all about calling at the right time, right place. And, some guys have 4 left wingers locked in for, 4+ years. And it's like, you're a left winger. It's like, maybe we'll just let him go. We'll do him a favor and, move him to the Avalanche or whatever. You know what I mean? So it does happen more often than you think. It's not that teams are giving up on you. It's like teams are like, they don't want to hold you back. You know what I mean? And you're going to say, no, it's not true. No, it is true. And of course, when you have more prospects here and there, then it's easier to move on from one of them. You know what I mean? Because you have backup in case of injuries and all that. But a lot of times people are rich in those types of guys, and they're able to just let them go and trade them for a second round pick, third round pick, or whatever it is. And and then they go somewhere else and it's like, oh, they had him. No, they knew what they had. That's why they drafted him. They like him. They liked him. They still like him. But you go and get a guy like that, like
Yep.
he was saying there. Those are good names.
That's how you bargain bin hunt in the NHL, right? When you get down to it and you need to fill a 13th forward roster spot, you could give a league minimum contract to a guy or something like that. Kivi, a perfect example, as we've talked about many times. See, that's not even a league minimum. He started on an AHL deal and worked his way up.
Yeah, no deal. No.
There is no doubt that those always end up being some of the most cost-efficient players for the ones that succeed, but rate of success there is also pretty low. So you do have to balance that a little bit. The reality, I think, is the Avs will look to be cheap on the forward side. So it's the defensive side where they have to be careful, where they have to avoid some of those landmines like a Cody Ceci. But I'm not sure. Is there anyone that sticks out in free agency to you?
Man, oh man! Sometimes I'm like, wow, this is a decent free agency class, and sometimes I'm like, wow, this is so thin. You know what I mean? And
Pretty thin, Mister,
right?
buddy. Pretty thin.
I feel it's thin. You know what I mean? And people are saying Sam Bennett. You know what I mean? I think Sam Bennett's already made up his mind. You know what I mean? And I think that when you saw last night again, he's scoring 2 more goals. He's gonna get it. He's gonna get the money. And if the Panthers can't do it, then Toronto will give it to him. Right? You know what I mean? And that's just my thoughts. That's just me. But there's always guys that, and I don't have to answer your question by 2 or 3. I have to, again, I go back and I'm bashing myself for it. Nate Schmidt, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I would have told you last year, do not touch. And I used to be in love with him. But I would have said, no, it's past due. You know what I mean? And now you're watching him play and you're like, man, like, wow, for $800,000, he's doing unbelievable. You know what I mean? And that, again, fit. He's a good fit there. You know what I mean? And he wasn't a good fit, wherever he was, Winnipeg and, whatever. You know what I mean? When he moved on from Vegas. So there's just, you have to, again, Riley Smith, I would have said, he's one of my all-time favorite. Then he looks like dog poo-poo, Then he goes back to Vegas and you're like, holy crap, he's back. You know what I mean? So there's guys like that I have to feel like the next few weeks, before the first, and then come up with my 2 or 3, where you think actually teams are moving on from, or teams that,
well,
are not sure,
I'll give you another one here then.
Yeah.
The other guy on our title screen for the show today.
Oh,
I would have a tough time. No, not Lindgren. The other guy, Brent Burns.
Sorry. Oh, got you. Yeah.
I think Brent Burns would be a tough ask as a guy who is 40. It becomes more of a conversation if the Avs decide to move on from Sam Girard. Burns is at least a puck-moving defenseman in that regard. But we also saw Burns' defense fall off a cliff this year. He got significantly worse on that side of the puck. His production is also down quite a bit, though he still has pretty decent offensive numbers. For a name like that, I have concerns about the price compared to what you're going to get out of the player if you're the Colorado Avalanche. I think it becomes a tough fit for the Avs in that regard with Burns. He does play the right side. People do value that. But again, when you're looking for Colorado Avalanche fits, Burns is another one that I would be hesitant to jump at.
Yeah, and the only one thing I would be concerned about, again, the age, of course. What a career he's had. Awesome. and he
Yeah.
seems to be like a great dude. Everyone
Probably
says he's a great
on
dude.
his way to the Hall of Fame. Like,
Yeah, he's awesome. Everybody says he's awesome. I don't know him, but he gets some good size. What a career, right? Forward, D, whatever you want to. He could do it. So. My only thing with him, and it's someone from the Avs last year reminded me, was, I think the year before or the 2 years before, he led the league in icings 2 years in a row. And this is not something that you're talking about tape to tape pass. You're talking about, again, we just talked about the Edmonton Oilers, Stetcher, guys that can make the first pass. When you lead the league in icings, it tells me that you're playing a lot of minutes, which is good, right? You know what I mean? It tells me that you do have the puck a lot, but a lot of times it doesn't end up on, your partner's
the right
blade.
stick. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's where he's at. Again, that would be a guy. Again, you're talking about good size, good everything. I would think that the Avalanche are not going to go down that path.
So realistically,
then Boquist, somebody's talking about
Yeah.
Boquist. Didn't he just resign like a 1 year deal? Did I just see that 2 days ago? Yesterday,
Maybe.
2 days ago. I thought they re-signed him. Yeah, I thought just re-signed like a day or two ago. I felt.
Yep.
Or
$850.
There you go. But that's a great Cujo. Good job. You're talking about a low number. You know what I mean? And a guy that can play if you think he can play. So.
And this is where it gets hard for the Avalanche, because it's going to be hard for the Avs to trade for pieces. I'm not saying they can't do it. They can move pieces out, get picks, flip those picks into something. But it is a lot more complicated for them to make trades this offseason as opposed to going out and signing free agent deals. So they're going to have to get creative in a lot of ways to maybe find some of the pieces that they want when it comes to being cheap, when it comes to finding assets that you don't have to give up assets for, or when it comes to creating assets to get other players with.
For sure, you have to be creative. And there's still the cap factor. There's still all that. That's why, they went, again, I keep forgetting his name, but added that to their front office staff, right? It's an art. And if people think, no, it's easy. It's not. It's not. It's an art, and you have to be able to figure things out and to be creative. And how do we do it? And how do we go about it? Because that's where the Avs are at, right? That's where the Avs are at. So I think it's important for them to figure those types of deals. And I think that, your guys have to be vigilant on foreseeing moves that are, going to be in front of them, and not miss the boat and really jump on stuff that sometimes it's all about timing and to be on top of everything. So very important that they figure out ways, because they don't have everything at their disposition to make those deals, like you're saying.
You want proof that being an NHL GM is hard? We are less than 2 years removed from the Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat deal. And we can already say that nobody won that trade.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, okay,
It's tough, man. It's hard out here. Most moves, if the goal is winning the Stanley Cup, most of your moves aren't going to work. That's just the reality of the NHL. The Avs are finding a way to bounce back from that this offseason. So still a lot of work to do.
And like Bobby just said it, they'll bring in 5 DeHaans and Shillingtons. Yeah, maybe. And then, again, you see what works and see what you need. And, again, I would have liked Brodstrom to keep a little longer. Who knows what would have happened. I know the size was a factor too, but who knows? We'll never know. Now he's in the Swiss League, right? He's gone overseas. So, yeah. But yeah, they'll bring in things like that, and I think you have to protect yourself, and to make sure that you do have, in case, and what we saw, a lot of injuries at the start of the year last year.
It might be harder for the Avs to bring in Brandstrom, Shillington, all these guys that they committed contracts to, right? You might be seeing more PTO style of stuff for the Avs.
Yeah, for sure.
That's just the reality of having minimal cap spaces. You can't commit that cap space and figure it out later.
You call that cat style, Kivi style.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Cat stop.
The Avs have had mixed results over the years with PTOs. Some have been good. Some have struggled. We'll see. It's another year of that. We are wrapping up today's show, though. We do appreciate everybody hanging out with us for another off-day show, talking a little bit of everything with free agency. We will be back tomorrow putting together our big free agency board. You're going to want to tune in, see what our list looks like, see who the Avs might be, should be, could be targeting in free agency. So we appreciate you. We're out of here. This has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by nobody. You didn't, not this time. Sorry. We'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.